and we'll open the room for discussions and your insight into this subject. Yes, Alan.
Yeah, I like your opening comments a lot about that these things are not to cause us to live fearfully or in terror of the future, but rather to help us prepare and to remain strong in faith. That's a very, very important concept when we review or delve into any part of prophecy. And of course, we see the prophecies of peace and beauty and holiness, and we see all those other prophecies as well that come at different times than the prophecies of a time of trouble, such as never was before. So God has given us prophecy in such a way that it's perfectly balanced. He shows you the bad results of rebellion and embracing satanic things, but then he shows you the gift of glory that shall follow his plan. And he shows you how we get what you referred to as a little help along the way. As they're they get a little help. That word is a very peculiar way of saying it. Sometimes I need a lot of help.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go back to, and I'll let Gail talk for a minute first, but when I come back, let's talk about they who know their God will stand. If we can go back to that.
Okay, we'll go to Gaileen first and then we'll come back to you. Yeah. Yes, Gaileen.
Unless somebody else wants to say something, I want to use that as a backup because that's a very, very big concept that can take us into in-depth study. So
yeah,
we'll come to it if it's necessary.
Okay, Gaileen.
Okay. Thank you, Tigor, for this opportunity to do the Daniel part. And this has been when I was locked down in Puerto Princesa, and it's just one room, small. And Mike and I would discuss. This is our what we would do almost. I don't know, every time we would meet and I asked him a lot of questions, and he said that, and Daniel's, I'm not 100% sure, of course, but if I remember correctly, he said that this already happened in one point of the Hasmonean, maybe, that they were all scattered. This has happened. And then again, when Yeshua died, and he gave the prophecy of Jerusalem being scattered, the people, his people, will be scattered to the wilderness. So he said it's already done too. But because the Bible is a cycle and it repeats itself, and when you were talking about persecution, I remembered Acts. The book of Acts is full of persecution but triumph as well. And that's where we see the signs and wonders, but also at the same time the perseverance of the saints to be crucified and made into fed to the lions, the Colosseums. So as you were describing everything then, just recently, I remember some movies we watched, Ben-Hur, some old movies where they showed the persecution of the Christians in the time of the apostles. So it's just like, okay, this has happened. It's going to happen. But for us who are now present, it's a different challenge. Of course, you just said like machine guns and tanks, but there might be other ways that are unknown, like these vaccines and stuff like that. They're improving their weaponizing things that were not weaponized before. So um, Mike was just saying that it just reminded me of all those things. So um, I look forward to Alan's encouragement also on what's next that we will talk about. Thank you.
If no more hands, like we will get back to Alan.
Yeah, well, the verse I was referring to was in chapter 11, and it is verse 32.
Okay, we'll go to the verses that would help us.
Yeah. It's a rather unusual way it's stated in verse 32. It looks like the word exploits is actually not part of the text.
No.
They put that in there to try to add clarity because of the following verse.
Yeah.
But this term here, as such, and such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. So the knowing of God is the key. The idea that a man can know God is a very, how can I say it? It's an impossible task for the natural man.
Yeah, sure.
Is not attainable for the natural man. So we're talking about someone who has received a calling and has been enlightened, had their eyes opened, who have received the heavenly gift. But then to know God after that you have received that gift means you have exercised all the necessary things to get acquainted, such as we get acquainted with other friends. We spend time with the friend. We learn to appreciate the friend for their good qualities. We eventually grow to love that friend. And all these things are necessary when we come to know God. We have to understand that there's a process to knowing God. Book knowledge is not enough. If I ask a lot of Christians, do you know the Lord? And they say, yes, of course. Then I say, well, what is it that you know about him? They probably would just go into a description of his qualities and characteristics and attributes. But would they immediately go into a description of when I had challenges in my life that overwhelmed me and I was unable to meet those challenges and my power was scattered from me. And I went and I cried out to the Lord and he rescued me. This is part of knowing their God. This is those that do know their God means that they have had experiences with him in the deep and dark valley, as well as jubilant experiences on the mountaintop. And that's the only way you can get there, is to have this closeness, this reliance upon him during your difficult times, and trusting in good times and in bad times. But you can't just have Bible knowledge. It has to be spiritual knowledge through experience. Because memorizing Bible verses, as good as that is not necessarily spiritual power. Humans can memorize lots of things. But I mean, I love memorization. I think it's necessary. But I think when it says here that they shall know their God and be strong, it's because they know him through experience. I hope that made sense.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can stop after learning the verses, do nothing other than reproduce the verses and their locations. That will do no good unless you live those verses and build relationship with God and truly know God through experience, as you said, and get familiar with him, get acquainted, well acquainted with him. And you have that strong, that relationship, that thing, that faith shall be, those people would be strong, it says. The other people who are not doing this, they will easily be lose out by flatteries, by deception. They may not outright reject God, but they will be corrupt, whatever that means, corrupt by flatteries. You're right. So what would it take for us from knowing scriptures to knowing God? What kind of transformation, what kind of work it needs? Knowing scriptures to knowing God. That's my question.
Some of it is knowing and admitting your inadequacy.
Okay.
Coming to the harsh and stark reality of how inadequate we are as a natural person. And even in our spiritual walk, that we also are completely reliant upon, you know how it said there in Revelation that you go into the wilderness and is nourished. Well, nourishment doesn't come from me or you, it comes from above. So we're also inadequate in that we cannot provide our own nourishment. So we're needy. We are needy people. Even as saints, we are needy. And we require our daddy to take care of us.
Yeah.
We don't have the ability to take care of ourselves. And that's one admission. I think we can go into the confession closet and we can say, I am needy. And I'm weak. And I'm helpless. And if I don't get help and nourishment, I will die. And we have to come to that admission, I think, when we start out. And probably most people do come to that when they're first called and they answer their calling and they come into the covenant. They probably come in with that attitude, that humility and that confession. But then maybe over time, it gets weaker, or we get busy with life, or we we don't stay focused on that humility and that neediness that we have. And we drift a little and we go astray little by little, like you said before. The losing of our spiritual strength can be gradual. I think you said that earlier. It's very gradual for some people. So that's what can happen to the person who is very sincerely embracing the covenant in humility and neediness. So knowing that that's the way things go, we can have that vigilance. And we can say, I know this can be gradual. And I know that I can become weaker and weaker and not even notice it unless I stay focused. Then I can see, hey, I'm pretty weak over here right now. So I think recognizing our weakness helps a lot. I forgot, what was your question, Tagore?
From knowing scriptures to knowing God.
Oh, okay.
Different things, right? Yeah, you're
Yeah.
pretty much on the same subject.
Yeah, but we need both. Of course, we need both. We were given the scriptures as a remarkable gift, a treasure, priceless. So we have to at least exercise our ability to know the scriptures and to embrace our God and to know him on that level of knowing. Look, all these people in ages past that died by sword and by flame, they died in faith because they knew their God. That's why they were able to die in faith. So we know that it's possible because many have gone before us, and the record is there for us, right? And some were sawn asunder. Others lived in caves and in dens and were living in terrible circumstances. They knew their God. That's why they could get through that. So blessed is he that comes to the 1335 because they get through and they make it through to the end without letting the flatteries and deception get through to them.
Isn't it interesting? Most people would fall for flatteries. Very few people actually fall with the active persecution. If you find the ratios, like the physical torture and the terror of prisons and arrests, that's definitely we have to reckon, and we can fall. But that category is comparatively small when you compare with those who fall for flatteries, deception. They're like majority.
Yeah. Now, why does that happen? Why do flatteries get to people? It appeals to the flesh, of course, and that's what Satan tried to do with Christ in the wilderness. He was lying to Christ, saying, I'll give you all these things. And he didn't even have the ability to give him those things. Mm-hmm. It was a flattering attempt. So flattery in today's world is an insincere gesture at exalting somebody. Someone tries to exalt you, what's a natural human response? It feels pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You feel valuable. You feel honored.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to resist that.
And what would be the result of the flattery? You reach to a state of satiation
A state of what?
State of satiation. You are satisfied.
Oh, yeah.
You grow dull. You will be dull of hearing and dull to work, dull to be vigilant.
Right.
This is inaccurate description of yourself. That is flattery.
Yeah. I suppose we could even say that when Eve was tempted of the serpent, that was a form of flattery.
Yeah.
So the method is not new. This is it's the same old thing again and again and again. This is one benefit we can have looking at history.
Mm-hmm.
We see the same old trick again and again and again. If that trick comes to you or to me, shouldn't I say, look, this is the same old trick?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some Bible teachers warn us of smooth talk. The moment somebody opens the mouth with smooth talk, you should say that is devil. The same word nice, they go to that word nice. It comes from a French word nice. That's same thing as like smooth talk. You want to be nice to the people with showing your teeth with always a good smile.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what, too? Sometimes they're telling the truth when they do it. So this is why it's so insidious. What if someone compliments you on something that you actually are good at, or something you've done and accomplished, and they compliment you on that? Is that flattery?
That is not, but you don't have that so many merits to demand that continuously they should be praising you.
Right.
At times they may praise you truthfully,
right.
but
That's what I'm getting at.
if they constantly day in and day out see only good things in you, either their perception is wrong or there is something wrong with some place where.
Yeah. So if somebody compliments you on something that's true, you got to be very careful with that person, because the next thing they compliment you on is something that's going to maybe not be 100% true. I just think it's good for us to be very careful about that kind of thing.
You know, James Lloyd, he warns his listeners. He warns, if somebody flatters you, watch your pocket and watch your wife.
Yeah. Usually they're trying to get on the inside, your inside circle, so you can.
That's he's hilarious. Like, any other thoughts from anybody about this little horn? Do you see any other scenarios? Any other insight God is giving you directly? You can share with us instead of keeping it all to yourself.
Tagore, I'm thinking about this term, fortresses. He respects a God of fortresses,
Mm-hmm.
strongholds.
We can go there.
What do you see as modern fortresses? What would be considered a modern fortress or a modern stronghold?
That's chapter 11. King James says, God of forces. Do you remember that verse? Somewhere in chapter 11. Still.
1138.
I think few teachers that we listen to, see the word, the interesting Hebrew word is God of forces. It's not really force. You can see on the right hand side. This is the meaning. A place or means of safety, protection, refuge, stronghold. A place of safety, fastness, harbor, stronghold, refuge, human protection. Sometimes it is translated as strength 24 times, and strong as 4, fortress as 3 times, hold as 2, forces as 1, fort and rock and strengthen. So total 37 times it occurs, and it's a spiritual concept actually. You have some people, you gather them into a stronghold based on some doctrine, some strange god is associated. It is concealed work. That's why some of the teachers, they point this out to secret societies. The little horn supposedly work behind the scenes, like a man behind the curtain. So he has to organize people into groups that are not visible openly. So it has to be a clandestine work. You have clandestine strongholds or groups, and these groups work, and they have their own different religion, and he would regard that. And with them, he also, his forefathers did not have this strange god of strongholds. I know why King James uses capital G, I don't know. There's no uppercase, lowercase in Hebrew. So this is translator's choice. So here, verse 39, he has interesting take on these strongholds, what they do. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds. Here the strongholds is same as God of forces, with strange God, associated to strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many. So these pockets of people he has all across the nations, all across the societies. So these pockets will rule behind the scenes over many, and they divide the land for gain. Land is again a euphemism for the power and domain. So they shall divide among themselves all the wealth and all the power, and that's how he gains control over the whole nations and all the layers of society. He pretty much has control over everybody through these pockets. And these pockets would infiltrate into churches, and they would act as their liaisons to watch over the true church, and they will be informants. So some teachers see that as secret societies, especially Freemasonry, but there are a lot more other. Yeah, that's what I heard from others. If you or anybody else in this room has additional insight, I would love to hear what this verse means.
So what is the word God there that's being used at capital God?
God is Elohim.
Okay.
In Hebrew, it is Elohim. Since Daniel's book is written in Aramaic, you have slight variation. It's Eloah.
Okay.
In the meanings, you have this meaning God or false God.
What's the word estate? The third word there.
The estate is ken, that is base, stand, pedestal, office, foot, place, estate.
Okay.
Most people would go with office, whatever establishment he has.
Yeah. So in his place of power.
Yeah.
We shall honor the God of forces.
Yeah.
Forces, I think, today, the forces that are in the air today are forces of ideas, forces of philosophies, and they're forces of they have things like think tanks, and they have trendsetters who set various trends within the cultures. So these are forces that go into the minds and hearts of people. I think this term God of forces could just be an allusion to Satan himself, the prince of the power of the air. And he shall honor the God who sends out these forces, these strongholds.
Sure. But there's a significant departure from the way his forefathers worshipped God. So it's not a traditional thing. Even though they are false gods, but this is something new, very unique to this little horn. Maybe new philosophy, who knows? Strange God. There is also another coin, another phrase. You have a strange God, not the general public would know and worship. This is a normal God or gods. You have a strange God or sometimes a secret God.
So they have it says here, God of forces, and a God that's not capitalized. It's referring to the same one again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But one is not capitalized for some reason. It might be a different word. Whom his fathers knew not.
Hmm.
So who were his fathers, if we're talking about the Christian church at large, the demons or Satan himself is not the God whom his fathers knew. So yeah, it's definitely a departure. The next verse has something to say about strongholds. And thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God. I'm expecting this is that same God that's in the previous verse.
Mm-hmm.
Whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. Now, if these are ideas and ways of thinking and mindsets, we see in 2 Corinthians 10, there's this phrase about pulling down strongholds.
Mm-hmm.
And every idea that exalts itself against God. So it might fit in a little bit with what's being said here. If this God of forces and this strongholds is not a physical thing, but a spiritual matter, then 2 Corinthians 10:5 has something to say about pulling down strongholds, which is to destroy a fortress, which is in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spiritual matter to destroy a fortress in your mind. Kind of like marching around Jericho, let's say.
Mm.
That fortress was brought down by the power of God.
Mm.
Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
It's good, like you're exploring possibilities. That's a healthy thing. You're not sticking to one opinion and making an idol out of it. You're open-minded and exploring all the possibilities. That's a good way of, healthy way of studying prophecy. So you don't see a role of secret societies in this,
Um,
or you haven't studied that?
I don't know enough about that. I'm
Okay.
not knowledgeable when it comes to that. I've never looked into it.
Okay.
But I mean, I know that there's a variety of secret societies. Everybody knows that some of them are open now that used to be hidden. Now they're out in the open. Like Illuminati, for example, has websites now that you can visit and they show you their mission statement. And they're one that used to be just a theory. People used to think that they knew about it. Now it's open for everyone to see. Just like many other things that in ages past were secret are now coming out into the open. So I guess we'd have to say that there's some that we know about and some that we don't know about. And are they all in harmony? I think that it could be that if they are moving through satanic influence, they could be moving in harmony with each other, in concert with each other, and not even know it. They themselves don't even know that. So I don't have enough knowledge to speak on that.
Galen is saying is an open temple of Satan. There's a Church of Satan in US. So they're a big group.
Yeah.
In Iowa, they're doing something, right?
And then there's a group called Freedom from Religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's headed up by the son of Ronald Reagan.
Satan temple there, it's very
And
dark.
they work to
In Iowa.
overthrow any kind of Christian presence and view in society.
When we are living in Houston, there's a neighborhood called Spring. They have rented a home, a building, and then they opened the Church of Satan there. For almost a month, there are lots of people, especially Protestant churches, have huge signs carrying, "Go away, we don't want you here." So the news, local news, showed both the sides, and then they gave an interview with that guy who is head of that church. And why are you not welcome in this area? So that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
She's not. Roadlo your capital spiritual warfare is real.
Yeah, somebody's gave an article. Satanic temple erects very dark, evil public display in Iowa Capitol. So spiritual warfare is real, and they gave some pictures of what they do in that church. And
site.
Galen says in South Korea, their president is God. And in China also. Is it North Korea or South? Probably North. And she is also, yes, North. In Jerusalem itself, Illuminati meet in Hezekiah's cave, I am told. This is from Galen. She's writing in chat room.
Yeah, that's nothing new to see your emperor as a god. You may be aware of this term Augustus. Caesar Augustus. The word August or August means divine. So if you were a Caesar, like such as Caesar Augustus, you were a divinely installed leader. So that's been going on for a long time. People see somehow they get persuaded to see their leader as though he himself is a divine person.
So do you envision emperor worship for this little horn?
Well, it's entirely possible. It's hard to imagine today, from where I sit today. It's very difficult to imagine it. Especially,
we have some patterns in North Korea and in China also. You're not allowed to worship freely God of Bible. You have a state mandated entity.
Yeah. But things change fast. I mean, the world can change quickly just through through economics and through war.
Yeah.
It can change rapidly within a one generation, can be unrecognizable to the one before it. So, yeah. Emperor worship, such as 2 Thessalonians, that's like an emperor worship.
2 Thessalonians is very much matching with the descriptions of little horn. Now we're getting closer to 125 points. I'm guessing that it will be 150 by the time we finish little horn. Then I will circulate through email. Like I will send it over to Don and Peggy, and they will circulate to all the people. So you can put them in your file. You can go through the list again and again. Dialin is saying little horn can be an AI.
You know, doesn't AI worship the god of electricity?
She says image of the beast.
I was thinking before, Alan, when you mentioned about the same old tricks going on all the time. And I think that's true. And I've noticed that in the corporate churches too, the wanting this control, but it's the same old tricks, but a new face is put on. You know, back in the day, I've heard worldwide, would want you tell the ladies how long their skirts could be, or how long your hair could be cut, or, all these do's and don'ts. You can wear makeup. No, you can't wear makeup, and all these different rules. And they keep changing, and they want control of the people, and we'll show you who's so-called rebellious if you're not going to be following these rules. And then the later one was you had to wear a tie before you could do opening or closing prayer. So it's just continual control things and just keeps putting on a new face. And you also see what's going on in the governments when you look at there's like a trend to control or to do things, and you see that also in the corporate churches. And so it's fascinating to see the latest where they're just you're losing your freedoms, trying to clamp down on controlling people. And you see that in the government, you lose your freedom of speech. It's getting less and less. Freedom of, on the campuses, the conservatives just don't have their freedom like they used to. And what Walt Disney, there was just a clip on tonight about how they're losing their freedom to be creative and so on. And of course, you've got a different moral activity taking over. And so that's going in with Walt Disney, and they're just, putting all these really terrible movies out that people don't want to watch. But you see that whole trend of this control, and that same line of thinking is going on, whether it's the large governments or different businesses or the corporate churches. And I find that interesting, and you wonder if that's going to be the forces of this God that's worshipped, that ties in some way, because it's predominant, over the whole world in this line of thinking.
Yeah, another old trick, Marlene, is if you create a crisis, then you have the need to save the day, so to speak. So if somehow you can have a manufactured crisis, whether it's a disease or a war or a social trend, well, then you have to step in to protect people and save people from themselves. So I think that's kind of like one of the old tricks too. One of the old methods of controlling and cracking down on the Christian faith is, over time you create crisis and then you step in and control it. All under the guise of, we're here to help you, we're here to protect you. Some of that came about in the Patriot Act after 9/11, which then allowed the FBI to search and to take away your standard rights in the name of investigations, suspect of terrorism, that kind of thing. So they don't have to have a warrant to do a search. But little by little, look, the crisis was 9/11, and now we have a Patriot Act that takes away all those things, all in the name of security. Well, what if I said you have to have this injection in the name of security? It's not an option. You're going to take this vaccine in the name of security for all other people. It's the same old trick again. You have a crisis, and the authorities have to step in to fix the crisis.
Yes, I've seen that in the churches. It's like a person goes around and stirs things up and then comes back and he's got the answer on how to, fix it. It's kind of ironic.
It is.
I've seen that happen, yes.
It is. It's amazing. It's simple. It's a simple concept, but it still happens and it still works for those who exercise it, who use that method. And I believe there's individuals out there who are evil enough to create an event that takes many people's lives so that they can blame somebody.
I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more than one way to have deception, and comes from a lot of different angles.
Right. And today, I think a lot of it is in the educational institutions. They're starting to really captivate the mind of first graders with various philosophies about gender and all that. And they have a rough road ahead because the science data doesn't support it. The geneticists don't have the data to support that idea about gender dysphoria. So they've got a ways to go yet with that fight, but I don't think they're going to back down with that. It's going to have to run its course. But in the wake of doing it, many lives are cut short. And many family relationships are ruined. All because they gained control of the educational atmosphere, environment for children. I heard a man say, we send our children to the university for 4 years so that they can learn to hate us. I thought, what a thing to say. So you paid all that money so you could train your children to hate you.
Yeah.
Because they're fed a philosophy that says everything your mom and dad thinks is wrong, and it's hurtful, and it's destructive. And it needs to stop. So there's that also, the divisiveness against family.
Yeah, and it's a gradual thing that happens. I remember going to the various feasts as our daughters were growing up, and there was a time where you were warned, don't spank your children in public because you're going to get hauled off to jail. You know, other people are telling you how to be a parent to your child. You're losing your freedoms as a parent. And now it's so much like we, the social workers, know more than you, the parent, and we, the teachers, know more than you, the parent, and the control of for parents is just being taken away.
Yeah. Yeah, because those agencies like Child Protective Services, they're backed up by the police. All they have to do is tell the police, we have reason to believe.
Yeah.
And that child is taken by force. You have no way of stopping.
Yeah. It's or the child, you know, child has to say negative things, and you know, they can wipe out their own parents, not even knowing it.
Yeah.
Or knowing it.
Yeah.
But if you look at where, you know, you go back to the original starting of the mandating that you must send your children to school and making it a law in our land, and you're already going off on the wrong start when God says you, the parents, are responsible to teach our children. And there were parents that were really bothered when this became law. They said, it's my job to teach the children, not the government. So you take something that's going off on away from God's way of doing things. I mean, it doesn't end well. Look where we are.
That's true. And the reason they can do it is because there really are parents out there who will not do a good job on their children. They will be neglectful and abusive. So because of those few, everyone has to pay. I think Tagore's screen messed up. Well, there it is.
I'm getting blanket to cover myself. It's so cold here.
Oh. Yeah, it's cold.
What's the temperature?
Now it's
55.
55, I believe. 54 in Ocala. That's considered very cold here.
I know. It's a heat wave here, though. 55.
20 there,
I've got 27.
20 clear.
Wow.
I'm at 59. It's cold. It went down to 49 the other night here. So that was a real cold snap. We had to hunker down with blankets.
Well, what kind of heat do you guys have? I mean, I've got heat going. The house is probably at 67, 68, something like that.
Well, it's cold, Peggy. 68. Aren't you cold?
No, I like it about there. But I'm wearing a sweatshirt and pants and
We have natural gas fired forced heat.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I can turn the heat up if I want to. But try not to.
Yeah, I generally avoid turning on heater because it dries up your nostrils.
Yeah, it's dry heat.
Yeah, dry heat. Some of my friends, they would put a humidifier alongside the heater. Anyway, coming back to China, have you heard about the way they control? They have apps on your phone, mandatory. Everybody needs to have an app, otherwise you can't live. Every parking space, every toll, all of them are linked to one or two government apps, everybody. And then whoever criticizes in their private bedroom government, they were arrested next day by secret police. They were eavesdropping.
No, I didn't hear about that part.
Oh, you haven't heard?
No.
There's a massive criticism of China by these human rights groups. There is one central Christian church in Beijing and major towns that is heavily controlled by government, and you can only worship there.
Yeah, I heard that.
Christians are allowed, but only that form of approved by the government.
Yeah. I also heard there's an underground church in China.
There is huge underground, it seems, like people still meet.
And that's those are the people that have to be meeting in secrecy and make sure they don't invite somebody that's going to be an informant.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a very serious matter to have an underground gathering.
And also same in North Korea, as Gailin pointed out. North Korea is worse. If you listen to Western music, you're done. You're caught. That's a shame.
Yeah, I know it's pretty bad over there. I think most of the citizens would like to get rid of that guy and embrace the free world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't have very far to look over the border to see, a more prosperous society. They're being strangled from any kind of luxuries. They live a very harsh and austere lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. He lives in super luxury.
Yeah.
He has all limousines and all the security guys, Secret Service, they will be running around his limousine, running on foot.
Yeah, he's a pretty good example of communism doesn't work. It doesn't, in the long run, it doesn't work.
These socialism, communism are big lies. They say one thing and then they actually do different thing.
Right.
All the leaders live in luxury.
Yeah, how do they justify that?
Mm.
I thought they were supposed to all be on an equal level.
Yeah. Who would question them? That's the problem. Once they get into the power and they become all the powerful, all the more powerful, nobody can question them.
No. Not unless there's a coup.
Yeah, coup would result in another dictatorship, right?
Yeah, it could. Although some countries have gone from dictator to freedom, but only through great efforts.
Hmm.
I think, in rare cases, like it used to be Eastern Europe was all communist. And then now Eastern Europe is no longer under that. Yugoslavia, Bulgaria,
Yeah.
um, some of those countries in that area were behind what they called behind the Iron Curtain.
Hmm.
Romania.
Yeah, all these Eastern Bloc countries.
Yeah. But that's kind of rare for that to flip back to being part of the free world again. It's not very easy to do. It's being done by outside forces.
Hmm.
I think other parts of the free world were supporting it and encouraging that movement to happen. Now, if Hong Kong and Taiwan both become complete communist strongholds, that's going to change how trade is done. That all by itself could change a lot about the economics of many countries. I think that's why they're so worried about Taiwan right now.
Well, the
Japan,
whole West wanted to teach a lesson to communist China by raising up Taiwan and Hong Kong.
yeah, a presence, yeah, in their
Yeah.
face.
They wanted to show the contrast, like here, like tiny capitalist countries are booming. But over the period, that did not work.
No, nothing works long term. All mankind's efforts are eventually going to fail. We can't come up with a system like Jesus Christ will have.
Yeah, the red China is emerging as a big beast. So the people in Hong Kong and Taiwan, they want to be part of this big, at least some people.
Say, this is Tom. I've got a question for Gailey. I heard on news that the Chinese were attacking the Philippines boats that were resupplying some of the outlying areas that they claim they own or have authority in the China Sea. Have you heard anything about that down there? Is that in public knowledge?
Oh, yes, it's much talked about, especially since I am from Palawan, where this supply ships go to. And we always pray because the last time was the last update was there were hundreds of ships gathering. And so every time that happens, we have a prayer brigade. Everyone needs to pray up. And I do know an officer who stays there, and he says, I tried to interview him, and it's a skirmish that's been like on and off, like a bully that's in school. And the more recent was another I forgot the word cannon, the water cannon was sprayed, and but there was also a Christmas public convoy of ships going to that island or certain island, and these are just ordinary citizens. So I think the U.S. Escorted the Philippine Coast Guard ship. So something like that. It's been ongoing, and it's something like hanging over our head, and that's why I'm thinking because the Palawan itself is hot property, but since this China incident, no big um, there's no land that's being bought by people. And even the US, there's supposed to be an island down south of Palawan that some military or ex-military US citizens are wanting to buy, but they can't or have not moved. Not that they cannot, but there has no move to any news if they still want to buy the island or not, because there are several bases in Palawan itself that is being fortified right since last year. And just like Balabac is in the southernmost island, another island in Palawan, and that's being also looked into. So, and we know before you get hit, like in World War II, the mainland never got hit, but the Philippines got hit. So that's where we're very cautious and praying that it does not happen to the Philippines, that we will be
We can't hear you,
bombed.
Gail. Gail, can you talk closer to your microphone?
Oh, okay. I think I am. That's the situation here in the Philippines. We're praying that nothing happens, but that's how do you call that? Something over our heads. We're praying that China does not do anything more and just keep on bullying. And I'm thinking, if anything, although it now has started in Israel, and we don't know if this is a catalyst for World War III. So we are praying that everyone will be prepared for any eventuality, and spiritually, that's a much needed thing also here in our country for the youth. The older people know what has happened, and even the baby boomers have their parents telling the story, but the baby boomers are less, and the younger generation now, they don't know their history, most of them. So and if there's what I'm seeing that we need to pray for right now are the younger generation, because like in our situation, in our time, there's 5, 8 children in the family. Now in the younger generation, there's 2, 3 in the family. The struggle, the hardship is less for those who have less children, and the children struggle have less struggle. So when it comes to hardships, the challenge isn't, especially in the big cities, if they grew up in comfortable air conditions and malls. um, they My friend who is a teacher is seeing the difference from those who are living in the countryside. They are more resilient, they have more perseverance, they have more uh, extended capacity to survive than someone who's been pampered. So that's the main purpose of all of this. I have seen also some uh, y- uh, even from the province, they say, oh, I don't want my children to experience my hardship. I don't want them to experience this and that. But that's how we grow. I look at ourselves like everyone is like a butterfly. You become a caterpillar and then you're in a cocoon, but inside the cocoon, you have to struggle to get out, and you cannot be helped, or afterwards the butterfly is weak and dies. So that's that's how I look at things now. When I will explain to children, they can understand what a butterfly is, and it's in the subject. So that's how we need to teach the children about how to survive in these last days.